I've got my queue up guy telling me right here whether to go or not. There we go. Welcome to our third out of the three-part webinar series on resiliency. My name is Robert Barber. I'm the Chief Underwriting Officer at McNeil Co. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us on the webinar today. I know we have associates, brokers, friends, and probably even some family members joining us today. I know the first two parts of the three-part series have been recorded and are available on the McNeil & Company website. It's mcneillandcompany.com/resilient. I hope everybody who attended the first two seminars got an opportunity to practice the things that Dr. Sirois has already sort of shown us the way to. Pond and Swamp, Other Side of and the best moments of the day. Best moments of the day happen to be my personal favorite. That's the one I've been practicing. I even put in my Outlook calendar a special calendar just for me to record the best moments of the day. So that's the part I've been working on. In preparing today, I was thinking about how I might have leveraged my character strengths at some point in my life during one of the most stressful parts of my life. And I thought back to the year I had my heart attack and how during that time period, I had to show up with some of my character strengths at that time. I had to be honest with myself and others about what I could and couldn't do. I had to persevere, knowing that, 3 years before that, I'd run a marathon. I'd spent 100 nights on the road traveling, and knowing that I wasn't going to be able to do that anymore, which led me to my third part of my character, I guess, search or venture, and that was participating in lifelong learning and going back and getting some advanced insurance degrees and getting my CPCU, my associates in risk management and data and associates in data analytics. That gave me the opportunity to transition my career into something else. And I just wanted to share that story with you because in preparing for this, it really made me sort of do some self-analysis and think about it for myself. But I'm going to pass it on to the expert here, Dr. Sirois, and walk us down the path and show us all how to do it better. Dr. Sirois.
Oh, thank you so much, Bob. And thank you for pinch hitting as well today. I deeply appreciate the story that you just told about your honesty, your perseverance, and your love of learning. And I have to believe that some of those best moments that you've recorded in the last few weeks have an element or two to them that really connect beautifully to your character strengths. Often when we are leading from our character strengths, we experience those moments as maybe not the happiest moments, but some of the moments of the greatest growth and achievement, accomplishment, and expansion. So I really appreciate your willingness to step in today and the beauty of that story that you just told. Character strengths are the primary driver for engagement at work, for work satisfaction, for performance, and for that sense of accomplishment that we all long for, that sense of having climbed the mountain and achieved the goal, like Bob running the marathon, and then turning those same skills and capacities into your capacity to learn something new that's going to elevate you moving forward. One example I want to give to you today of this is the example of Brian Kelly, who is the CEO of Green Mountain Coffee Roasters. Think the people with those Keurig cups that we have all over offices and in some cases homes around the world. Well, in 2013, he and his executive team made the decision that they needed to close the Toronto factory, which meant laying off 120 employees. But Brian made this decision with an interesting twist. He told his executive team and the leaders at the Toronto plant that knowing that we needed to close the plant was very different than deciding how to close the plant. And he gave his entire team 1 year, 12 months, in order to facilitate the closing. Now, logistically, the closing could have really happened in something like 3 to 4 months, maybe 6 months. But in giving the team the year, he was asking them to live into a driving question in the field of resilience and positive psychology. And the question he asked them to hold themselves accountable to was, who might we be at our best when we're causing the closing of a plant. During the time of that year, the leaders of the plant and the leaders of Green Mountain Coffee Roasters did everything they could to show up leading from their best selves, from their character strengths. They did so on behalf of the well-being of the company, of course, but most importantly, on behalf of the well-being of the 120 employees who are going to be laid off. And because they were so conscious and mindful of cultivating their character strengths, persevering in the application of them, and therefore showing up as their best selves, that plant actually had the highest safety and productivity ratings it had ever had. And they were given the entire year of job counseling to help every single employee who was going to lose their job move into a better position at the closing of the job. Because of the extraordinary support, the extraordinary vision, and the deep, deep care that Brian Kelly and his leaders demonstrated, on the day he showed up at the Toronto plant to literally close the plant, he received a standing ovation from the very people he was letting go. We are capable of being our best selves in the worst moments of our lives. Character strengths are the drivers of accomplishment, performance, satisfaction, and engagement. And they are most important when we are in a time like this. Recently, I was gathering some wisdom about an understanding from the field of neurobiology that there is literally an integrated biological, emotional, and cognitive system that scientists have called that refer to our surge capacity, our capacity to stay up 6 days in a row as the hurricane hits without sleep, without much food, and get stuff done, respond to the crisis. But surge capacity is meant to be an integrated biological response over a short period of time. COVID is presenting us with the demand of having our surge capacity called upon time after time after time again, without quite enough recovery in between. As one scientist said, it's like being asked to build the ship while the hurricane is storming about us, right? In those moments, the most tumultuous moments of work and of life, our character strengths, think of them as the grounding force and the inspiring well of energy within us. Now, what are our strengths? I'm talking about them in general right now, but there is a rich science around them. I'm going to point you today through the research done by Martin Seligman and his colleagues at Penn University through their lab, now called the viacharacter.org organization. Character strengths are the best of ourselves. Every single human being has character strengths. They refer to those qualities that when we activate them, bring good well-being, strength, and capacity to us, but also when we activate them, bring goodness to others. So they are multidimensional. They're not just self-centric, they are other-centric as well. In the early 2000s, Dr. Seligman and his colleagues did a 3-year research study using 80 researchers from around the globe to articulate a language for who we are at our best across race, time, gender, socioeconomic status, and place. So in other words, no matter who you've been, who you are, where you were raised or born, and what status you were raised in, you were invited into this conversation in terms of what is it that defines who humanity is at its best. Dr. Seligman's research team put together a list of the top most esteemed, most useful character strengths, 24 of them, and in a minute, Catherine will add them into the chat for us. But while she's doing so, what I'd like you to do now is think of a moment of stress. Just pick one moment of stress during the time of COVID-19. And reflect on when you showed up well during that time of stress, what strength were you using? And I'd love for you to put that in the chat, just a word or a phrase. What strength were you using during a time of stress since COVID-19 came to us? We've got some humor, generosity, patience, empathy, determination, perseverance, faith, patience, playfulness, faith, organization, compassion, gorgeous. What we're already starting to see here, Bob, is the incredible breadth of character strengths that we have available to us and the uniqueness. Every human being is sort of a unique treasure chest of strengths. What's most important to understand about our strengths, and Catherine, thank you. She's starting to put the 24 character strengths from the pen people in the chat. What's most important about our character strengths is that they enable us to do the following. Number one, to persevere. Number two, they elevate optimism, a grounded optimism. Number three, when we lead from our character strengths, we experience faster growth than if we focus on our faults and weaknesses. This is particularly true when we're thinking about how well we lead others, right? Bob has a number of people who report directly to him. When he's thinking about how to increase their capacity, their engagement at work, you're going to want to focus more on their strengths, which potentiates growth much more in a much more sustainable and more efficient fashion than when you focus on their weaknesses. We'll say more about that a little bit later on. Those of us who lead from our character strengths experience greater efficacy, competency, greater self-esteem, increasing satisfaction at work, at home, even, interestingly enough, when we're in jobs we don't particularly love. If we are asked to lead from our character strengths, invited to lead from our strengths, we do better and we are more satisfied with the job. Furthermore, they increase happiness. Now, not Disney fantasy happiness, but that sense of, gosh, I have something to look forward to. Even though 90% of the tasks are not easy on my list, I actually look forward to it. I actually look forward to showing up as my better self at work. Your greatest likelihood of success at work, and by the way, at home, is increased when you lead from your strengths. And the more likelihood of you being seen as performing well increases when you lead from your strengths. Now, there are two moments that I want you to think about in particular that the research is helping us understand. When we are looking to make a transition, new job opportunity, promotion, transferring from one domain at work to a whole other domain, right? Moving from, I don't know, sports consulting to insurance, or moving from insurance to executive leadership, right? Like when you're looking to make a transition, super, super crucial to know your strengths because they are your value and to leverage that value into the transition. Also, in terms of the moment we are in about being super thoughtful about diversity, inclusion, respect, and justice, know that those of us who are underrepresented in organizations actually perform better, are recognized more easily and sustained in their performance when they are absolutely clear about their character strengths. They know their value, can articulate their value, and they leverage their value by adding it to work, meaning adding the best of themselves to whatever they're asked to do in the work environment. No matter where we look, whether we're looking in organizations, whether we're looking at school systems, whether we're looking at individual health and well-being, character strengths potentiate the greatest resilience. Now, this is not a Western conversation only. Character strengths have been integrated into businesses and organizations and educational systems throughout the globe. We're talking Africa, Australia, Europe, Asia, everywhere in the United States and North America, as well as South America. So we are not alone in this journey of understanding what our strengths are. Let's then get to the practice of our character strengths because that is the most important. The first teaching I want to offer to you today as a practice is that resilient folk lead from their character strengths. When Brian Kelly was asking the executives at Green Mountain Coffee Roasters to create the best possible year of layoff, he asked every single one of them to be clear about their strengths and lead from there. This is also true in our personal lives. The day my younger brother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, he was 48, I was 50. He had stage 4 cancer. It was everywhere. No matter what we did, my brother was going to die. On the day that next day after getting the phone call, I flew down to be with my brother, and I took in my hand my list of VIA character strengths, those 24 strengths in rank order with descriptions. I'll tell you how to get your own list in a minute. I took the list with me because under stress, we forget who we are. Most of us spend most of our time in our heads thinking about the things we need to improve, the fault lines and the fractures. And we forget to look at ourselves through the lens of the good. Bob, if I hadn't asked you to name your character strengths, how likely is it that you would have entered this conversation today aware of your strengths? Is that something you normally spend time doing?
Not my character strengths, no.
Yeah, and that is true for most of us across the planet. So under stress, we tend to forget who we are at our best. I took the list with me, and I did what my professor had taught me. I chose the strength that felt like it would give me the most vitality, energy, sense of strength and capacity in the presence of the stressor of losing my brother. The strength I chose that morning was perseverance, because that is me. I don't give up. I'm a dog with a bone. And I needed to make that persevering strength concrete. And what I decided on that flight down to North Carolina, where my brother lived, is that every day during this journey, no matter how long it would last, I would ask my brother 2 questions. Johnny, what do you need? Johnny, what do you want? And I would do my best to fulfill them. I wasn't always able to get my brother what he needed or wanted. However, I was able to show up leading from the best of myself. When my brother passed, which was perhaps the most excruciating moment of my life to date, I was able to stand at his memorial service knowing that I gave him the best quality of love I could give him, which was my ability to endure no matter how dark the day. Our strengths are the best of us under chronic stress, acute stress, and in moments of opportunity. Now, what I'd love to ask you to do now is think of a current stressor. It may not be the worst stressor of the moment, but a current stressor. And it could either be relative to work or relative to home. I can see that in the chat, Catherine has posted the 24 character strengths from the VIA organization. Thank you, Catherine, for doing so. What I'd like you to do is take a moment, look at those strengths, and then just pick one. The one that you feel like would be the most energizing and capacity building for you. Not the one you feel like you should be better at, but the one that you are actually like excited about applying. So pick one from the list and then please put it in the chat. What strength will enable you to perform well relative to the stressor you are facing right now? So many are flooding in. Can you see them, Bob?
Yep. Yep, it's a lot of consensus there with persistence.
Right, and bravery and temperance and gratitude and hope and humanity and forgiveness and courage, kindness, love of learning, self-regulation. Wonderful. Okay. Now, here's what I'd like you, thank you all. Here's what I'd like you to type into the chat now. And then, Bob, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you to think about a current stressor. You don't have to tell us what the stressor is. And pick a strength that you're going to want to apply. This is just an experiment, right, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
You're okay.
I'm fine. I'm still over here.
I know. Stay with me, Bob.
I'm with you.
Okay. Now, what I want you to chat and what I'm going to ask you to name out loud, Bob, in the chat, I'd like you to put, what benefit do you believe would grow if you led from that strength consciously a few moments every day? What good would grow? So, Bob, what strength do you think you would apply to a current stressor?
One that's not my strength is faith.
Faith.
And I'll share with everybody. My uncle passed away this morning.
Oh, Bob.
And that will help hopefully get me, my family through it.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Well, again, you've shared with us your moment with your brother, and I just happen to be experiencing that this morning.
It's freaky sometimes the way the universe hands us these moments in which we can be present to each other as human beings. So thank you for the honesty. There's your honesty strength again, and the vulnerability. Now, if I can take this to just an intellectual level for a moment with your permission, if you were actually to lead just a few minutes every day practicing your faith, whatever that means, what benefit do you think it might give you?
It would provide me with the ability to see beyond the today and view life in my conscious being in a much broader form and bigger shape than day-to-day occurrences.
So some perspective would grow.
Yeah.
Some perspective. And it sounds like in your language also you're suggesting that it would help you navigate the grief.
Yep.
It would help you navigate the grief through perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you. You have just given us an incredible example of what it means to be a human being, because in pulling back the curtain on your personal life, you're also reminding us that this boundary between work and life is super, super, super thin, that we carry with us our losses, our fears, our anxieties, and also our hopes and our dreams and those wonderful miraculous moments. I was just getting a text from a friend before about a new friendship that's blossoming and the joy of that sudden surprise friendship, right? That we carry these with us too into our work lives. So whether we're navigating opportunity or navigating acute stress, such as a loss, our strengths are grounding and capacity building. So I want to just go back to the chat and see what some of you're getting a lot of kindness sent your way, Bob. So William says stronger relationships if he practices his strengths. Patience from Vicky if she practices her spirituality and increasing sense of faith. Leadership would grow, said Anne. Leadership and teamwork, ability to better compartmentalize time. Yes, absolutely. Clarity, what you're referring to there, Brenton, is a kind of clarity. Ashley, leveraging kindness or activating kindness gives another person peace or calmness. Erica, trust in relationships, and Kelly, contentment and courage. So in addition to our strengths, what's important, and then Azalea, wisdom to see above the storm, beautiful. And isn't this, you guys, isn't this exactly what we want? Because in addition to all those research benefits I named before, performance, optimism, efficacy, self-esteem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, strengths give us a plan. They tell us how to show up. Every day, a few minutes every day, I knew to lead from perseverance with my brother. The rest of the day was total chaos, or could have been total chaos. And I knew who I was for like 10 minutes a day. If Bob chooses to leverage his strength of faith moving forward, relative to the loss of your beloved uncle, you will have clarity for a few moments every day. Oh, this is the time when I elevate my faith. Now, the beauty of choosing one strength, you all, is that it's not limiting. Your character strengths, all your other character strengths will come to play. As Bob elevates faith, his honesty will be available to him as well. His love of learning, his own ability to persevere will be with him as well. So choosing one is the practice because it keeps it sustainable. And usually most of us are successful when we only have one thing to focus on. But know that your other strengths will emerge as well. So the first teaching tool for today, choose a stressor, consider your strengths, pick one, pick the one that you know is going to be energizing to you, not the one you should be good at, but the one that's energizing, and then practice that a few minutes every day. I like to suggest practicing for 30 days in a row. You could do a small experiment and practice 7 days in a row, and then see the last step, see what gains have grown from leading from that strength. So feel free to type into any questions or in the chat or the Q&A. Catherine, you'll let me know if I've missed anything. Now, how to gather this language for character strengths, you simply go to a website, VIA character.org. We'll put it in the chat. And there's a free inventory there. Takes about 15 to 20 minutes, and you answer questions that are like, are you more this or that, or more likely to do this than that? Thank you, Catherine. And up will pop at the end of the 15 minutes, those 24 character strengths in rank order with descriptions. Now, again, why is it so important to have a language for our strengths? Number one, because most of us don't. We are strength blind. We spend so much time in our minds reminding ourselves of how we're not good enough or smart enough or wise enough or whatever, that we've sort of crowded out the voices that remind us, hey, I'm also pretty amazing. Secondly, when we have a language for something, we can manifest it. We can make it real. I can practice my tenacity as soon as I'm aware that, oh, I'm tenacious. Bob can practice his honesty as soon as he acknowledges that's one of the qualities that's good and rich within me. The second reason that we want a language for our strengths is because that's where our value is. Our greatest value to a family, a community, a team, an organization, or our own health and well-being rests in our strengths. Remember, they are the best of us under duress and in moments of opportunity. Donna asks, what about multiple strengths at the same time? Absolutely. Feel free to practice multiple strengths. However, Donna, I'm going to ask you this. If you are in a time of high stress, just pick one. If you're in a time of moderate stress, maybe pair two together and see what happens. Maybe pair loyalty with perspective or creativity with justice and see what happens. Under a time of low stress, that is a wonderful time to practice novel approaches to using your strengths or blending a bunch of them together. But under high stress, pick one. Yes, we do that too intentionally once we observe it. Thank you for that. Stephen, dealing with an elderly father who has onset Alzheimer's and being persistent with my communication with him. It reminds me that having humility during those times, the great responsibility I have as his guardian. So in this gorgeous example, Stephen, you're reminding us and yourself perhaps of your own capacity for persistence, humility, and also I would suggest kindness. Because the persistence is enabling you to show up over and over again, there is a built-in kindness there. Who you are at your best in the presence of this stressor may not look like who you are at your best at work. That's the other beauty of character strengths. We have a treasure trove within us to draw on any time. So I love this articulation for yourself relative to your father, and invite you to consider also if there was a stressor at work, what strength or quality may serve me best there. In other words, there is no limit to the goodness that we can bring forward. I want to mention a second tool that we can use in elevating our resilient capacity at work and at home. Permission to have different strengths for different parts of our lives. Absolutely. When I think about how I show up as my best as a mom to two young adults, it doesn't always look the same as how I show up at work. At home, I try to be funny and I'm not that funny. At work, because I actually feel more competent often at work than as a mom, the humor comes out naturally. Fair enough. In community, so here's an example, Tammy. I am cheeky. That's true. So I don't know. Do any of you own Home Depot? Is there anybody on this call who owns Home Depot? Because I have to tell you, I hate Home Depot. I am terrible in Home Depot. I get it wrong every time. The wall of light bulbs alone is enough to send me to crazy town. Bob, are you good at Home Depot? Can you like?
I'm proficient.
You're proficient, right? Not excellent, but proficient, right? I am horrific. I get in there, I get overwhelmed, and I get flustered, and then I get angry at myself for being overwhelmed. And then I cannot tell you how often I brought home the wrong thing. The problem with Home Depot where I live is that it's near my favorite store on the planet, which is Barnes & Noble, which has a Starbucks inside of it. So when my kids were young, like 8, 9 years old, I was often bringing them to Barnes & Noble. This is when we were redoing our kitchen. And my ex-husband would say, oh, you're going up to the plaza, stop into Home Depot and get this. I am such an awful person in Home Depot. I locked my kids in the car often, and they were not old enough to be locked in the car. They hated being with me. I hated being with them. So one day, Tammy, I'm in line at Home Depot. I'm the third person in line. Behind me is a professional contractor because the professional contractor line had been shut down. So he's pissed to be standing behind me. The first person in line has 13 curtain rods, 12 have a price, the 13th one doesn't. They're all the same rod. Cashier girl's been on the job 6 seconds. We are her first people. She gets the 13th rod. She notices there's no price tag, and trying to be helpful, she goes, I'll go see what the price is, and she abandons us. We're shouting at her, it's the same rod, it's the same price, but she can't hear because she's so activated and anxious about being helpful. She's gone. I'm fuming because I know I've locked my kids in the car, and I don't remember if I put the windows down. Behind me, the 6'20" professional contractor who has a head, I am not kidding you, like a Rottweiler. You can feel the anger. I think he is going to bite my head off. He is so enraged. And I remember, oh my God, I have strengths. I turn around to him and I'm like terrified, but I'm also ready to change the moment. I turn around and I go, so what's the dream of your life? To which he responds, not being in line with you at Home Depot. And we start to have a conversation in line at Home Depot about the dream of our lives. And because we're laughing, the moment changes. Now, here's the thing. My brother was always going to die. That wasn't going to change. Bob's uncle has passed. That is not, there's no change. We were stuck in line. My kids were locked in the car. Cashier girl was gone. That was not going to change. What changes when you lead from your strengths is how you show up. And how you show up changes everything. We are here to lead ourselves. We are here to lead others. We are here to lead our businesses. And we are here to lead the totality of our lives. How we show up changes everything. I could be in Home Depot, miserable, radiating toxic fume because I hate being there and I know I get it wrong and I feel bad about myself, which I've been. I've been that woman in line many times. Or I could pause and build in the and of my character strength. I could bring humor to the moment. I could enter my brother's bedroom, devastated, enraged, terrified, heartbroken, and lead from my strengths, and in so doing, bury him knowing that I gave him the best sister love, best big sister love I could give him. Every single one of you on this call, or every single one of you watching later, is going to have a moment coming up, a moment of distress or a moment of opportunity. And you have the choice to show up kind of grumbly, whiny, worried, anxious, frightened, uncertain, unclear, doubting oneself, and pivot anyway to the best of who you are. One of the ways we can do this is, of course, to do the inventory and then lead from our strength. Another way to do this, which is particularly helpful in a time like this, I'm just checking the time now, in a time like this, is to actually use the past for the benefit of the present. For example, Bob gave us a story of a time. Bob, can I ask, when was your heart attack?
October 2009.
Yeah, so a number of years ago. So you went back into the past and you did what we call mining the past for the gold. You mined the past for a recollection of, how did I navigate that well? And then what can I bring from the past into the present moment to create a slightly better future. So Bob, let's imagine, I'm making this up, Bob, but let's imagine that in addition to your beloved uncle passing, you've got a difficult moment ahead at work. Maybe it's next week, maybe it's next month, but you've got a difficult moment. You can see it on the horizon. One of the exercises you could do is to spend time reflecting. What were 2 or 3 moments in the past when life was hard and I had a difficult moment on the horizon at work and I navigated it well? And then bring that learning about your character strengths into the present. You see, success is not accidental. When we navigate stressful moments well, it's because unconsciously or consciously, we have chosen to lead from the better parts of ourselves, the wiser, strength-building parts of ourselves. We can use that mindfulness to use the past to inform the future, the near future. So if I was working with Bob, if I was Bob's coach, and he said to me, oh, I've got this difficult thing coming up 3 weeks from now. I don't know that I'm going to have time to get it all done. And I really want to get it done well. And I have to manage a number of people, not just me, the whole team getting this project done well. One of the things we would do is go back to the past, remember who you were at your best, and what wisdom can you take from those memories into the present so that you could create a better future. Not everything is under our control. What is always under our control is how we respond to the crises or stressors or opportunities facing us. Those of you who are listening with an ear toward younger people in your lives, or elders you're caring for, or siblings you're worried about, we can use this same technique in the personal domain. Who have you been at your best in difficult moments, and how can you bring that to the relationships that you are concerned about at this time? So, activating strengths under stress, mining the past for gold. The next thing I want to talk to you about, and the third lesson for the day, and then before we close, we'll do some summary of all 3 webinars, has to do with what we call strength spotting. So strength spotting refers to noticing in vivo, meaning in the moment, strengths in others. Every human being has character strengths. And I'm going to save you all $100,000 in therapy right now. If you want an improved relationship, either at home or with a colleague at work, practice strength spotting. So strength spotting is very simple. You consciously make the decision to look for the good in another human being, and then you name it out loud as close to the moment that you see it activated. So imagine that Bob and I have been put on, I'm going to ask you, Bob, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Having spent a little time with me today and then prep the other day, any idea, like one strength that you've seen evident in me?
You see the best in everybody and in every moment.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And what I have seen in you is courage. The courage to pinch hit at the last moment, the courage to do something you haven't done before, and the courage to name something that is painful but true in your life right now. What I've seen in you is courage.
Thank you.
Welcome. So strength spotting involves naming another person's strength in the moment with a clear example. Why is this so important? First of all, other people are strength blind, just as strength blind as you are about yourself. We tend not to have a language for what is good in us. Secondly, remember that strengths potentiate growth more than focusing on weaknesses. That's true when we focus on our own strengths, and it's true when you invite others to lead from their strengths. The research in school systems and in businesses is consistent across the board, cross-cultural research. When we focus on our strengths, there's a greater potential for growth, better accomplishment, achievement, and increasing satisfaction in reaching that achievement. Imagine that you have a team of people you want to inspire to handle a difficult project, or imagine that you have someone at home who you want to continue to help motivate to sort of face, let's say, face the drama of school from home during COVID-19. In both cases, you want to create the pathway that is most likely to lead to success for them. Strength spotting them is that pathway. So what you want to do, here's a suggestion. So the next time you have a team meeting, you have that project, that deadline or that project facing you, you actually spend a moment reminding people of their strengths. Bob, when we had that conversation the other day about getting ready for today, I noticed your humility, your willingness to learn, and your humility. And that's what made it so easy for us to actually figure out how to do this well together. Thank you for that. And that was real, what I just said, by the way, right? So you name the strength, connect it to a moment, to an experience. And what the person will often experience is first gratitude, maybe a little embarrassment, but also an increasing sense of, over time, of esteem, of pride, and of a desire. Here's the key part, a desire to stay in the game with you. This is why engagement goes up. Who wouldn't want to be engaged with someone who sees them through the lens of strengths? Now let's take this to another level. Thank you, Catherine, for all the research that you're pointing in there. Imagine that you have a colleague that you're having a difficult time with. Maybe they aren't performing in the way you'd like them to perform. Maybe there's just a personality kind of conflict. Maybe you don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. But for whatever reason, the relationship has become a little difficult or fractured or confusing. And you would like that relationship to be in a better place. If you approach them from the lens only of criticism or of doubt, how do you think they're going to feel? Let's answer that in the chat. If you approach a colleague with criticism or doubt, how do people feel? How do they react? Yeah, defensive, shut down, negatively, not worthy, more doubt. Yep, you've got it. We armor up, we shut down, we attack, unsure. Harvard Business Review had an article a number of years ago when the strength research was starting to emerge. This was in the early 2000s. And one of the authors said that people remember criticism, but they respond to recognition and praise. We want response. We want positive response. So instead of approaching them with criticism or doubt or sort of that sort of passive aggressive thing we can do sometimes, like, you know, I'm with you. I'm not sure what you're doing, but I'm with you, right? That kind of, I'm sort of with you, but I'm not really. Imagine approaching them through the lens of their strengths, spotting the strength. Let's see in the chat now how you think people might respond. They might rise to the occasion, absolutely. They'll be elevated. A sense of pride, confidence, motivation, loyalty. Yes. And they'll push themselves harder. They'll work harder for you. They'll feel empowered. Absolutely. Now, Catherine made a really important point. We don't want to ignore the gaps. We don't want to pretend the gaps. That's remember from our first conversation, swamp and pond. We don't want to ignore the gaps. And if someone doesn't have a skill that's necessary for their job, they need to know they have to up-level that skill. One of the conversations that was most impactful for me was when a mentor took me aside and said, "You're great at sharing stories. How about integrating a little more data into your presentations?" I was like, right, thank you. Like, we need to manage for gaps. And we need to promote strengths, right? Promote strengths. So strength spotting is absolutely crucial at home and at work. If you want to improve a relationship at home, what would it be like to quiet the critical voices and turn the volume up on the voices that notice goodness in action and names it out loud? You will get the same results at home. Motivation, loyalty, more willingness to show up and push themselves, and a deeper connection. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me pause there for a minute. And Bob, what are your thoughts about strength spotting? Anything landing for you around that, or any questions for you around that?
Yeah, you talked about, at home versus at work. And I always tell my wife her superpower is remembering names, faces, and details about people. It truly is. And I always tell her that that's one of the things I wish I was better at. That we go to dinner. We used to go to dinners every March in this one county in New York, and she didn't go with me for like 3 or 4 years. The following year she came, and she was walking through the room telling me who people were, who their kids' names were, and asking me about what was going on with them. It truly is a superpower. So I think I do practice that a little bit even at home, because I always comment to her that that's a trait that I wish I had.
And how do you think she feels? Like, what good grows when you spot her strength in that way?
Oh, it sends her off the edge as far as just being happy, and that I've actually noticed that that's something that she does. And also I think it helps in the relationship that I understand that's a weakness of mine. And God gives us all gifts, and he didn't give me that one.
you were away when that one got handed out. Yeah. So Lucas, if I may. So Lucas in the chat says, Bob always reinforces my strengths when we chat. Lucas, if I can ask you to now write in for us, what do you experience when he spots your strengths? In other words, what good grows within you? What do you feel? Or how does that change you? It feels great. Maybe 2 more words, Lucas. Any more thoughts about that? What does it inspire in you to do, or to how to behave, or? Yes. Okay. To do the same, right? To pass the goodness on. To pass this goodness on. Catherine, is it something all your bosses and colleagues have done? You're right. That is a huge differentiator, by the way. When we look at those who are high-performing women, our whole leader is brought to you by Leader Mom. And when we look at high-performing women who are also highly esteemed at home, for actually accomplishment and engagement, both at home and at work, and success, one of the things that we know to be true is that somewhere along the line, someone was adding value to their value by spotting their strengths. Bridget, when Bob points out something to me, I want to do it more, pass on the good feelings to someone else. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yep. So here's what gets elevated. You become elevated, you become energized, you become motivated to do the same on behalf of others. So you create this positive spiral around you by the one simple action of Bob being the best of himself. So that capacity to strength spot, by the way, is tied directly to one of our highest moral virtues and highest strengths, which is the strength of generosity. Generosity is connected to kindness, and they package together. Think of them, they twin together like the DNA strands. Kindness and generosity are some of the greatest moral virtues we have on the planet. So if you want to activate a better world at work and at home, we want to spot strengths in ourselves and in others. What else are we seeing? My boss makes me want to be my best self. It's addicting, says Chris. Oh my God, that's wonderful. Kate, Bob does a great job of telling people what they're doing well daily. He doesn't give himself enough credit. Kate, here's the thing. There is no level to strength spotting. You can strength spot Bob no matter where you are on the chart, right? Whether this is a hierarchical system or one of those web-based sort of cross-pollinating business systems where there's dotted lines everywhere, or whether this is, it doesn't matter what business system you're in, you can strength spot at every level. By the way, when you practice strength spotting, not only does your generosity become evident, your sense of esteem grows because you know you are showing up as your better self. Okay, let's tie this all together. So today we discussed pick a stressor, apply a strength to that stressor, one that you feel will energize you. We talked about mining the past for the gold, and we talked about strength spotting. I want to bring back the other 2 webinars. The first one, we talked about those practices that increase optimism and decrease anxiety. The best moment of the day, building in the and, celebrating small gains. In the second webinar, we talked about connection, the importance of connection, especially in a time like this. Connection is sustenance. I was just on we had a global parenting webinar series hosted by some thought leaders in Israel, but presented around the world for parents. And one of the researchers in parenting and positivity from Columbia was on a panel, and she asked everyone to say, what is the one wisdom that you want to offer? Like the one wisdom you want to offer before we close. And one of the psychologists from Israel said the following: we don't live in homes, we live in relationships. And that is 1000% true. We are embedded in our relationships. So connection in a time of chronic distress is 1000% crucial. So we want to leverage those experts, those mentors. We want to remember to put ourselves in our own choir while we are activating the choir to support us, and build in more positive daily connections at work, either by creating opportunities, by recognizing another. Remember, we can strength spot by recognizing, by having those one-on-one conversations, and creating moments in which we experience ourselves as the best of ourselves with each other. The last thing we talked about is today's webinar, which is about character strengths. And if I'm going to just generalize, strengths are about building capacity, the ability to get through and get through well. Now, we've talked about increasing optimism, decreasing anxiety, strengthening the sustenance of connection, and now increasing capacity, no matter what level of distress we are under. What you have been given in this series, I hope, is a felt sense of the template of resilience that is most important when we are faced with the difficult, if not the impossible. No matter how well you might have enjoyed these moments or the learnings or been inspired by them, none of it will make a difference if you don't actually practice something. Bob, you started out the conversation today by saying that you have held fast to the best moment of the day, and that you've actually booked it, right? You booked it in your planner or something so that you remember, you write it down. What was the best moment of the day? The invitation from us is to choose one practice. There are reminders for each of the webinars. Just choose one. Hold fast, practice it a few moments every day. And most importantly, notice the good that grows either within you or around you as you practice that tool. Resilience is an inside job. It's built from within. Notice the emphasis on the word built. It has to be practiced and crafted. So with just a couple minutes left, I want to open up the conversation for any last questions or reflections. Leadership is learned, right? Knowing isn't enough. Just being inspired isn't enough. It's helpful, but it's not enough. We actually have to practice those things that sustain and support us. Okay. Bob, just curious, of everything that's been talked about today, what's landing sort of strongly for you?
I think mostly, as you're wrapping it up, that everybody needs to invest in themselves. You need to take the time, and yesterday afternoon, as I was asked to prep for this, Catherine had sent me the website to go in and do that self-evaluation. And I think that, every moment you spend investing in yourself pays dividends in the end. And it's kind of anticlimactic for me to talk after Dr. Sirois sort of wrapped that up, but it really is. It's investing in yourself, giving yourself time to do it, because of all the challenges you have every day, it's tough to give yourself time. And that thoughtful time to sit here and think of my best moment, or to take 15 or 20 minutes and do a self-evaluation, or to do those things and then develop those characteristics and strengths. It takes time. It doesn't just happen because I watched a 1-hour seminar. I've got to watch the 1-hour seminar and what was the old college thing? You're supposed to spend 2 hours for every 1 hour in class.
Right.
I mean, I never did it. I don't think I could ever do it. My time management wasn't that great. But that's the one thing I take out of the learning over the last 3 seminars, is it's still up to me to deploy the tools and the lessons that you've given us. That if I don't utilize them, I'm not going to get better at it.
Right. You won't experience yourself as growing, as more resilient, and nor will you cultivate that in others, right? Because we actually, to actually inspire and motivate others, we actually have to model those things that make a positive difference. We have to live them in action, right? What difference do you think practicing best moment of the day has made for you? What positive difference?
Yeah, and actually that was going to be part of my intro that I deleted because it was too long. But it's that what I'm finding is that I, like everybody else, I tend to dwell on what went bad today and what can I fix tomorrow. And what it's sort of changed is my mentality is, as I look through the day, I think through the many good things that have happened. I usually find myself having to pick the one, because I only force myself to put one in the box. And that's sort of made me that evaluate all the moments, and I remember more than one moment now because I'm thinking about it and giving myself, and it's not a lot of time. I think it's like 5 minutes at the end of the day. I flip my Outlook calendar to best moments of the day calendar, and I sit there and consciously think about what I'm going to put in the box.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you're not only more aware of the best moments, you're holding yourself accountable. And that, by the way, is exactly what we're talking about in terms of personal leadership, leading yourself through the day. Kelly, if you go to viacharacter.org, there is an incredibly robust research tab. It's all free. And there are subsections for managers, for leaders, or for character strengths at work. I would do that. Also, if you're connected to Harvard Business Review, they've done a number of articles through the year that talk about managing leading from strengths. Another organization that has a strengths inventory is Gallup organization. So feel free to tap into their resources. And Catherine, that's what I was going to suggest next, is that she email us. Let's see, any more questions? Let's see, Erica. Yes, thank you. You're welcome. All right. So in the last minute, before, I'm going to turn it back to Bob in a second to say goodbye for all of us. But in this last moment, I would love it if you would post in the chat the one practice that you are willing to take forward and apply to your life or your work or both. What is the one practice from everything that you've gained from this series? And strength spotting. For Bob, it's best moment of the day. Be my best self, best moment. Yeah. It's tough to choose, Lucas, huh? Excellent. Put yourself in the choir. Absolutely. That's, let's take ourselves and our lives seriously. Mining the past for the gold. Yep. Gorgeous. Someone asked me recently, what is one wisdom? If I could only offer one wisdom in this time, what would I offer? And the wisdom I would offer is this: to take every day as a unique day. They may all feel like ordinary COVID Mondays, but they're not. Wednesday is not Thursday. Thursday is not Friday. No day is guaranteed. The day we have is the day we've been guaranteed. Take the day and shape it a few minutes each day. These practices only need to be applied a few minutes each day. Pick one and shape the day a few moments so that you are either inspired, soothed, nourished, or strengthened. That is how we get through the worst times. That is how we get through the unpredictable times. And more beautifully and more importantly, that is how we grow through the most difficult times. Thank you, Bob. I cannot thank you and the McNeil team enough for this opportunity to be with you in these conversations. Please carry back for me my gratitude and my deep, deep respect for your concern for all of those, your associates and clients and customers and associated people to them, for your concern to provide them resilience at this time.
I'd like to thank you, Vanessa, Catherine. Your team has been wonderful to work with. And the supervisory teams had the luxury of even spending a little bit more concentrated time with you and your team. And it's been a real great opportunity for our development of our company, our team, and everything else. I also want to share with everybody to watch our website, because I believe we're going to be developing other programs and trying to develop other things moving forward. There's been a lot of really great response to these webinars, and we do feel an obligation to our community, our industry, and to our associates to continue this and try and help build resilience. Because as Dr. Sirois so aptly pointed it out, in March, we thought we would all be back in May. Well, all of a sudden, tomorrow's October 1st. And I know many of you are not looking to move back to your offices or your workplaces anytime soon. Resiliency is going to become more and more critical, a skill for all of us to have, to learn, and to have resilience with each other and trust each other and let each other develop whatever strength you need to get through your day. But I guess in wrapping it up, again, I'd like to thank everybody on the call for participating. It was great today watching everybody sort of type their answers in today. There was great participation. And that's the only way we all move forward, is if we participate in all the opportunities you have to grow. So thank you, Dr. Sirois. Thank your team. Thanks all of our customers and people on the call. And we look forward to talking to you again very soon. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you, Dave, and the tech team behind the scenes. Thank you to Derek and Mary and Dan, most of all, for bringing us in. We wish you well. And yes, let's stay tuned. Hopefully we can do this again.